I started shaving my eyebrows off. I felt like this is who I was always meant to be. I was like tormented inside because I wanted to be a girl one day and I wanted to be a boy the next. I started getting more active and dressing more as a woman, living the lifestyle of, I guess you could say, heavy drag, just living like that every night. I kind of went into that place where I made up a decision in my mind where I wanted to be a woman.
Hello and welcome back to the Almost False podcast, where I interview regular people with incredible stories. Today's guest is someone who has struggled with gender identity his whole life. Feeling rejected by everyone, he eventually decided to live as a woman, and that lasted for over a decade, during which his life spiraled downwards and he became a hooker. That was until something miraculous happened and turned his life around. His name is Tommy, and here is the story of how he developed gender dysphoria.
So living there, especially with a large family, like I was always close to my mother and my sisters. So I was always embraced by women. I just felt a closeness to them. I felt accepting towards them. I just felt this nurturing, loving towards the aspect of a woman or a mother figure or a lady figure in my life, to where it kind of really put me in a place of starting to take on the characteristics of feminism, dealing with being around ladies all the time, to where a lot of my gesturing started showcasing to other people how I was moving, how I was sounding. And again, I'm a young age, don't really know terminology in regards to homosexual or gay, faggot. At that time, certain language was used. I didn't have a grid for it. I didn't understand it. As far as in just dealing with my gesturing, a lot of it had to really deal with my surroundings, being around women all the time, young girls, girl figures, friends. If I did have friends, they were always females. There was always this close connection that I had with them. I really didn't know how to socialize with other boys. I think that was a determining factor for me. It was just always uncomfortable to be around other masculine boys, because there's certain things I wasn't really into. I wasn't into a lot of sports. I wasn't into a lot of things that I saw other boys doing. So I just knew I liked arts. I liked craft. I liked certain things that weren't so masculine. And so that kind of just put a overall of just how I would move and gesture just due to my surroundings.
And how did that play out in school? Because when we're young, usually boys stick with boys and girls stick with girls, but you had more affinity with girls. And you had trouble speaking to boys. So how did that work out in the first few years of you going to school?
It was actually difficult because growing up in an abusive household, witnessing physical fights between my parents and among siblings, it really did something to me to where I really didn't know how to socialize with people. So if anybody wanted to conversate with me, they would have to come up to me and start the conversation. I just didn't know how. I wasn't outgoing like that. I didn't know how to go up to people, make new friends. So it was very difficult, especially being in grade school, because I always felt like I was awkward. I always felt like I was weird. I just didn't fit into the mold that how certain kids were moving at. There's some things that I just didn't like doing. Again, back to dealing with sports and stuff like that. But when it came to making friends, that was very hard. Like as far as in like communicating here and there, but never really being around me to build a relationship with me. So school was very difficult, especially being around younger boys, dealing with the name callings and really antagonizing me as in regards to how I moved, how I sound, and which I didn't really even know how I was moving or how I was sounding. I was just trying to be a kid, but yet everybody else saw something else I couldn't see.
How did you feel at that time? Because for you, you were just being yourself, just being normal. And it seems like everybody's rejecting you. How are you taking it?
Honestly, I was just living life, just doing school, just going one day at a time. And honestly, really bearing the fact that I just didn't want to do school anymore. I'd rather just be home. So I was always looking forward to the end of the school day, just to hear the bell ring and exit. That was like my goal. Every day was just to head home back home.
Okay. You had feminine mannerism, like you said, but eventually you did become attracted to boys. When did you realize that?
So that dealing with attractions, that didn't come until later on. Growing up into like middle school, again, didn't really have friends. Again, the name callings continued. I really put me in an isolation box to where I'd rather not associate with anybody. I'd rather not talk to anybody if that was going to be the outcome of any kind of interactions with people saying any kind of hurtful words towards me. But there was one particular friend that lived in my apartment complex. and he was new to the apartment complex, and he was new to the school. So I remember one day I was walking home, and he was walking behind me. He already knew who I was. He knew I lived in his apartment complex. But what made him different from amongst anybody else is that he looked past those things that people said about me. And he wanted to build a relationship with me as far as in friendship. He was pretty much one of my first friends that I've actually had that saw past everything to where I realized something's different here. Something's different with this particular individual. And I started recognizing that I started having same-sex attractions at this particular age.
And how old was that approximately?
This is around maybe like seventh, eighth grade. So I would say about like 13 years old.
Okay. And then things got significantly worse when it comes to the name calling and all of that when you got to high school a few years after. So can you explain how these years panned out for you in high school and how that was a big turning point in your life? Because a lot of things shifted at that point.
Yeah, it seems like my story is like always on repeat, especially in this particular time, because it was always a repeated pattern. And again, no friends. I was always the loner at school, just attending school, to where I was actually having other students come up to me after school, just tapping me on the shoulder, asking me if I'm gay. Not really answering any questions, or if they were in class with me, they just didn't even know me. They would just randomly walk up to me and ask me. So they were seeing something that I could not see. So school was the same pattern with the name calling, gay, fat, gay. So it really did something to me where I just started to like get into this place where I just started ditching school. Like I'd rather just not be present at school if this was going to be the repeated pattern of pretty much all my life in grade school, all the way leading up to high school. So I decided to start ditching school, started running away to spend time with my cousins who were females at this time. And it kind of got into me and being introduced into drugs, running away, not really attending school. So that kind of portrayed into actually me walking into a place of doing cocaine at this particular time.
And how old were your cousins when that was happening?
Yeah, my cousins were 16. They were 16 years old. So they were still child. They were still teens. They weren't adults, but they were talking to older gentlemen. I mean, not old like old, but they were maybe like in their 18s, 19 years old. But yeah, that's how I got introduced to them.
And how did that have an impact on you personally? Ditching school, getting involved with older people, starting to take drugs at a very young age. What did that do internally?
Internally, I kind of felt like I was just free, just to like get away from the noise, get away from the chaos, and get away from everyone else, and just kind of, whether if it was a coping mechanism just to get away from that and just fall into something as far as something I have control over, like I can do this, I have control over the situation. In regards to doing whether ditching school and actually doing cocaine, all that stuff, I kind of feel like for me personally, then like it was just to get away from everything. I just felt like this personal empowerment, just to like just be myself and just get away from just the noise of it all.
So at this point, I still don't think you fully realized your sexual orientation. And you had, because you said you had people asking you, and they were seeing something you couldn't see. But eventually, you did end up embracing homosexuality. When was that, and how did your life change shortly after?
So dealing with when I started coming into a place of actually realizing that I recognized the same-sex attraction, dealing with my friend and me actually ditching school. I was still in school. I would go to school in and out. So I didn't really start embracing it until I really started questioning myself. Like, are what they saying is really true about who I am? I'm starting to believe this feeling that I'm actually bisexual or that I'm homosexual because I'm attracted to another boy. And I had a conversation with my mom because I'm struggling internally of wanting to say something, but did not really having an outlet on who to say it to. I didn't want to share it with my father. I didn't want to share it with another male figure. I just felt comfortable sharing it with my mom as far as in what I was feeling in this particular moment. So I remember just telling my mom that I was bisexual. I kind of wanted to leave that space open of hope. Like my son is still attracted to females still. Maybe there might be a time where that might come, but I just felt like it was a lesser evil to say that I was bisexual, to leave that glimmer of hope. Like, okay, this is maybe not a permanent thing. This is something that he's dealing with. And she told me, and she replied to me, son, I think you're in denial. I think you're struggling with your emotions. So from that moment, after sharing that with my mother, like it kind of led me into a place of just embracing this emotion, this thought of bisexuality, of feminism, this how I'm moving, how I'm gesturing, and I started shaving my eyebrows off. I started plucking them, drawing them on, and little by little, throughout my life, you can see the progression of where I first started and how it began to grow into dressing as and living as a woman.
So you used the word bisexual, I think, to soften the blow to when you were talking to your mom, but you didn't feel that internally. I think you explained. Can you go a little bit deeper into how your parents felt when you revealed that? I don't know if you still had talked to your dad at that point of the story, but because I had a little bit of trouble understanding when you were saying it. Was your mom supportive of the idea?
She wasn't supportive of it. So, in regards to how my father handled it when he did find out, but before that, during the same time, there was one encounter where my father did actually say something. Again, my father was a heavy drinker, and I remember one occasion my father told me on one particular night, if we put up set a camera in the house to see, pretty much record how you act and how you move, you can see that you act like a girl. And I think that was uh, the turning point where I didn't expect my father to say that towards me. I didn't want to hear it from kids at school, but now I'm hearing it from my own father at home, recognizing something that I really couldn't see. But yeah, they were never really accepting of it. But they never really were brutal enough to like kick me out and do other stuff in regards to the decision or when the announcement when I did tell them how I was feeling.
When your dad told you that you were acting like a girl, it seemed to have a different impact than when other people were saying it. Is it because it hurt you internally when he said that?
That one definitely did hurt. It was different from everyone else because I loved my dad. I didn't love I didn't love strangers, but I loved my dad. He was there, he was present, he was always there. But for him to say that, that really did a number on me to where I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that from him.
Okay. And you mentioned that you started shaving off your eyebrows and it gradually started moving more and more toward a feminized version of you. At some point, you got into drag, and those two things seem to be very connected. But can you explain why you gravitated towards drag? Like, what made it so appealing to you?
When I shared with you in regards to starting shaving off my eyebrows and feminizing, at this particular time I was still in school, just in the same process of ditching school, and came into a place where I decided to drop out. I was still highly active with doing cocaine with my cousins, meeting new friends. I kind of went into a place of actually going onto a particular chat line, which is actually something that you call in on a landline phone at this time. And I was kind of introduced to other people who were on there, straight, gay, bi, whatever. Everybody that was on this particular chat line, and it was just really. It started off playful, conversation wise, but it kind of led me into going into that place of doing drag and dressing up because I met friends. I had friends, and I met friends on there that really accepted me. And these individuals were in the lifestyle of homosexuality. They're in the gay community, and they were very accepting. They were very receiving of me, and not only did I meet friends, but I also met other male individuals. Obviously, when I was on this phone chat, like my voice is very feminine at this time. At this time where I was young, at a young age, it was very feminine. So a lot of people thought I was a female. So I would play the part as a female, but when I would meet people, I would let them know prior to meeting them that I was a male, that I was a guy. But doing drag, it kind of progressed. It just didn't happen like that. I did again meet gay individuals, friends on there who kind of told me certain things like, "You look really pretty. You look really feminine. How come you don't try dressing up? Is this something that you would think about doing?" And it really put a thought in my head. This is something I want to do. This is something I want to actually dive into. And from that point, it began to started stepping into doing drag at that time.
So I don't know a whole lot about drag, but one aspect that I do know about is that there's a certain kind of character that people put on when they put on drag. And I'm wondering, I don't know if that's the case, but I'm wondering, for you, was there an aspect of trying to escape the reality? Because you said when you were 13, you were trying to escape the reality of what was happening in school and all of that. Having a character, was that a part of it, or was it strictly because of what people were saying around you?
So when I stepped into that, like it was like I felt like this is who I was always meant to be. To say like this is very comfortable. I'm comfortable in dressing up. I felt comfortable. There was no conflict with it. It just seemed normal. So dealing with the challenge, I didn't meet friends on there who I end up going into a place of going into gay nightclubs at the age of 16 years old. Like they didn't really card at this particular club, which is unheard of because there's alcohol involved and stuff like that. So I would go to these places dressed up, whether in drag or I would dress up without hair, but I will wear full makeup and go in costumes to these particular nightclubs. And so it really put on a persona of myself where I just received myself and accepted myself in this. Like it just seemed normal. It seemed normal.
And I would imagine that it makes it harder if you got tons of makeup and a wig and stuff like that to know the age of the person, but still 16 is really young.
Yeah. So dealing with the nightclub, because there were so many people, whether if they didn't catch it or they just didn't care and they just let everybody go in. So this particular bar, I'm sure it was probably 18 and over. I can't remember. It's been years. But I remember the age that I did start attending. And the most of the times where I did go, they never carded me.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to tell you about our extra content on Locals. It's where you can hear the beginning of our conversations, learn the practical applications of the testimonies, and get hours worth of other bonus content. All of that, plus the regular episodes without any ads. It's free to join, so why don't you come check it out by going to almostfalse.locals.com or by downloading the Locals app. The links are in the description. Now let's get back to the story. Okay. How did your sexual activities develop over time? Because we talked about the feminization of the outward appearance. We talked about the attraction, but we still haven't touched on, the sexual part of it. So how did that develop over time as well?
So I mentioned with the chat line, it started with this actually encountering other men. So I would actually talk to certain people. Again, they didn't know that I was a guy. I didn't sound like one. They assumed. And this particular challenge, you were able to go into private rooms with just one-on-one conversation. So that particularly happened time and time after to where I end up meeting an individual, but before meeting them, I had let them know that I was a male and they were okay with that. And I think that was the turning point to where my life became sexually active with the same sex. And from that point on, that's where it began to be a regular thing of meeting men, and it progressed over time. But yeah, it was dealing with the challenge that kind of opened the door to actually being sexualized with other men.
I want you to elaborate on the idea of like the progressing over time, because eventually you did become a hooker. So I want you to explain how it developed into that, and also why did it become appealing to you? Because that's not something that most people want to do, but obviously that you weren't forced into it. So can you talk about that?
Yeah. Well, there was so much going on at this particular time. Now we're dealing with the year 2000. At this time, there was so much stuff on HBO, certain shows that I would watch, and dealing with prostitution, actually. And it would show different transsexuals or as far as in transgender individuals who look like women that would prostitute themselves. So there was some sort of influence in those videos that I would watch to where I'm starting to question myself, like, I can actually make money off of this instead of just doing it for free. But there's a little bit more to why I started actually going into that too, because I witnessed a lot of my sisters get with wrong men, and also seeing my actually how my father would treat my mother when I was young too. Where I kind of made this decision in my mind that if I'm going to do this, I'm not going to allow men to treat me like how they treated my sisters or my mother. So I stepped into this place of that, and I went into that place of just saying, I'm not gonna just give this away. I'm actually gonna make money off of it. This didn't happen on the challenge where I was charging males. It actually went into a place where I started getting involved in heavier drugs. At this time, I was doing crank. Um, it was a particular drug where it keeps you awake. You don't really eat. It kind of suppresses a lot of stuff. When I started getting involved in this is where I started getting more active in dressing more as a woman, of living the lifestyle of dressing, I guess you could say heavy drag, just living like that every night, and how I would dress and go out into the streets. And now I went into a place of actually prostitution, actually meeting guys on the street. And honestly, it started off with just, let's just walk to the store with another friend. Let's just walk to the store. Let's see if we get any attention like that. And from when I recognized that I was getting attention, then it became a regular thing to where I was stepping into being a hooker and doing that types of acts.
Let's talk about the drug that you mentioned. I'm not familiar with what crank is. If you know a little bit, maybe you can help us to understand what kind of category it might fit in. But what I find interesting is the periods where you would not have any sleep or wouldn't eat for long periods of time, because you started having weird experiences, let's just call it like that. And I want you to explain kind of the things that you would see and how that worked during those periods of drug use and no sleep and that kind of stuff.
So crank, there's different names for it. I don't know what it is now, but then crank was, I could relate it to crystal meth, where we get methamphetamines, how we know it now. The language I would use then it was more clean. It wasn't so much like cut with other different types of chemicals. So crank was cut with a different types of chemicals. And so what this particular drug does, it really keeps you up. And it's related. It's known as an upper, where you feel very high, energetic. So on this particular drug, I would be up for days, and the most days that I can recount of me being up on that particular drug was 6 days straight. So there was 6 days where I was not sleeping. So I was very sleep deprived. So late at night, I would see dark shadows in my room. I would notice shadows moving on the side of me. But I would definitely see shadows. I would hear things. And when I say I would hear things, I would just hear like growling or noises, but not seeing anything there. So I would see certain things like that.
Okay, and you obviously were intoxicated, or you were addicted at the very least. So if you weren't intoxicated, you might have been withdrawing from it, and you had not a whole lot of sleep. So do you know that these weren't just hallucinations? Because hallucinations are a thing. Was that hallucinations, or is there something that tells you that it was much more than that?
No, I believe this was way more than hallucinations. Only reason why, because there was always a trail of it throughout my whole life of seeing things like that and being fearful of certain things. The neighborhood kids would get involved with certain Ouija boards, actually make them themselves, and they would tell spooky stories as young kids. But I kind of feel like that was an open door that kind of opened up for me to be terrorized in the nighttime through dreams, and really on in my life that carried on, just seeing certain things like that and witnessing things like that. And now dreams were always kind of normal for me in regards to just night terrors. Like there were several accounts where my mom had to come wake me up in my room because I was screaming out, yelling. So that would happen sporadically. It wasn't something that was daily, but there was times in my life that I would recognize that my mom would come into the room and wake me up because I was having a nightmare.
So you're saying that these dark experiences, whatever they were, started when you were young, and then once you started taking that drug, they just got bigger. But they weren't new. It wasn't something that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't new.
Okay. I find that very interesting. But I want to go back to gender dysphoria, the belief that you were a woman. You touched on it a tiny bit earlier when you said that it felt right that you were wearing women's clothes. And I think that was probably the genesis, the beginning of that period. But can you explain how gender dysphoria developed for you over the years?
It was a progression. It wasn't something I just like, I've always known. It was something I kind of walked into and started coming to the realization like this feels normal. I started recognizing I fit the role of a woman. I feel like internally, I feel like this is who I'm supposed to be. And it kind of progressed throughout time to where now I question like, is this who I was always meant to be? Because this feels like I'm honestly trapped in the wrong body. We hear that terminology a lot. I feel like I was born in the wrong body. I had those questions asked, I had those personal questions to myself asking, like, was I born in the wrong body? And I was having this moment where I was like tormented inside because I wanted to be a girl one day and I wanted to be a boy the next. Like I would grow my hair out, for several months to where it would grow long or even years. I would grow it out. And then I would have this feeling where I just want to be a boy and I would cut it off. It was just a whole lot of confusion going on of who I was supposed to be. But in this particular conversation, I remember just crying in the car, and I just cried and just asked God, like, it would be so much more easier if you can make me a girl, because I was dealing with the torment of just like not really loving myself. There was other things that were said towards me with my family and my brothers and as adults, like what are you going to do with your life? Are you going to continue to do the same thing over and over? So although it happened as a child, I kept hearing it ringing over in my adulthood life too, to where I started questioning myself. Like I felt like I was, I guess you could say, I felt like I was a burden to my mother and my father, to where I felt like it would be better for me to be in prison or for me to die. So I would question and ask God, like, it would just be so much better, because honestly, that's what I felt in that moment. Like, if I could be a girl, I would be normal. Like, I would be normal, and I would be accepted I would be accepted by everybody. But that wasn't the case. That's not how God designed me. But in that moment, that's what I was struggling with.
Yeah. I have a lot of sympathy for you because you never fit in from the time that you were a child. You never fit in with boys or with girls, and you weren't trying to be different. You just happened to be like that. And I totally sympathize with the feelings that you were having of feeling like you don't belong, and it'd be better if you weren't there because you felt like a burden to people. But you talked about it'd be easier if I was a girl, a woman. Did you ever take that extra step to wanting to transition physically?
Yeah. My life pattern continued dealing with the prostitution and doing drugs, doing crystal meth, to where I decided to go all in. Like, I decided to go all in. That was my life's goal at this particular moment. Obviously, the prayer wasn't answered. God turned me into a woman. This is what I want to be. That didn't happen. So I pretty much put measures into my own hands, where I was just like, I'm just going to continue to progress into this place of really transitioning into a woman. Now, again, I made up in my mind where I'm growing my hair out. I'm living as a woman now. So I remember I started taking estrogen, which is actually an injection that I would take. And it was filled with estrogen. I would take it, I think it was twice a week. And you can find how I purchased mine was at a local botanica store, which is actually a Mexican store where they sell candles. A lot of people, they buy a lot of their witchcraft items there. Honestly, I really don't know the ins and outs of it, of what they sell there, but I know there's candles and certain items. But this one, I would buy my estrogen over the counter. They didn't card you, they didn't ask you questions. Then you put it together and inject yourself. But I kind of went into that place where I made up a decision in my mind where I wanted to be a woman. And to be honest, my friends started going into that place of living that lifestyle as well. Obviously, I have friends now who are living a homosexual lifestyle and living their life as women. They moved to Vegas, and that was my ultimate goal, was to move to Vegas and actually pursue, again, prostitution, being a hooker out there, and pretty much making money to pay for any type of surgeries and my whole transition. And the estrogen, what it did, because obviously I'm a male, so it kind of really I'm filling my body with estrogen and I have testosterone. So it brought a lot of like night sweats. But I remember one night I had a dream and I woke up from a nightmare. I can't tell you what the nightmare was about, but I just knew I woke up from a nightmare. But I would always hear my mom tell me, especially growing up as a child, having nightmares to turn on, you know, either she would come in, wake me up, or later on, as I got older, to turn on the Christian channel or the radio or something, turn on something in regards to, I guess you could say, Christian music or Christian TV. So I remember waking up and I turned on the Christian channel. I believe it was CBN or TBN. I really can't remember. But all I remember I heard on the TV was someone sharing a testimony of a transsexual who the Lord took to hell and back to let them know that he didn't create them to be a female, but a male. Now, I can't find this. I can't find this testimony. I can't find it nowhere, which is really weird. But I knew what I saw and I knew what I heard that night. But when I heard that, something happened to me, like something happened in my heart. I stopped taking estrogen. I didn't stop living the lifestyle. I didn't stop. I didn't stop doing being on the streets, selling my body. I didn't stop doing none of that. But it detoured me from mutilating my body and making the decision to really go out and pursue any kind of sex change. But that's where it kind of went into a deeper place to where now I started doing prostitution online, which would either be Craigslist or Redbook at that time. But I would start meeting men on there and doing online prostitution like that.
I want to touch on something that you mentioned, because you said that your life goal was to go to LA and be a prostitute in LA, which is quite a strange life goal. And I think if you ask any children, no one would ever dream of that. So I want to ask, why did you see that as a honorable thing to do? Or did you even see it as that? And also, how would you have described your life at that time?
When I said it was a life goal, honestly, because it was just my life was so immersed in that lifestyle already. I couldn't see like me actually having a 9 to 5 job. I couldn't see myself actually making money working at a fast food restaurant or somewhere at a particular job place. I never had that. So being what I was doing was kind of normal for me, and it just seemed like it was easy money. It was fast money. So it was a life goal for me because it felt like it was a faster way to get the job done if I went that route. Now, my whole life and what I thought of it then, it was felt like the stuff, the interactions I was getting myself into was drawing life away from me. So my life was in shambles. I really didn't have anything to give to no one but my body.
You said that this was normal for you. Did you experience any guilt or shame related to selling your body away, or was that so normalized that you were kind of numb to it?
I like how I like that you mentioned that because I did feel shame and guilt after every encounter, and I would even question myself, like when it came to same sex encounters with men, even after things were done, I would even ask myself, like, I would have these alone talks to myself, like, this is not for you. Like, why are you, like, I would have those moments where this is not what I want to do, but it just seemed like something always overtook me to where I just kept doing it over and over again. It's like I didn't know how to get out. I didn't know how to leave that place. Again, when I say it's like it was a normal thing for me to do, because it was a normal thing for me to do. Although I would have these moments and just be like, I don't want to do this anymore. I would just feel disgusted with myself. Actually, after the encounters, I would feel so disgusted with myself to where I would just either just like, I can't believe I just did that. But again, I would fall into the same pattern over again. But yes, guilt and shame did play a part in that every encounter I did have.
Okay. You said that you saw no way out, that you thought that was the only way to go. But your life did a total 180 one day. Can you talk through the day, what happened, and tell us the story of what changed your life?
I remember this particular night was I was getting high with my brother and my sister, and he mentioned something. Now I don't know if my brother was involved in witchcraft. I did hear some stories later on, but he mentioned this phrase to me, and he said it was the witching hour. As soon as he said it was the witching hour, I just felt like this heavy, oppressive thing kind of come over me. It seemed like everything shifted in my house to where everything seemed like gloomy, like dark and gloomy. And I knew something was there because I could feel a presence. I know a presence when I know when something's there when it's fearful. And this moment, I'm feeling fear all around me. My sister, and my brother, they're just talking like if everything's normal. I'm sitting there feeling this, and I remember calling my mom because I know what I'm feeling. And I have remember the conversations, turn on the Christian channel or, let me pray for you. Now, at this time, particular time, my mom's serving the Lord faithfully now. And I called my mom and because I was going to have her pray for me. She didn't answer the phone. I had left her a voicemail. And I'm trying to play it off and laugh it off, like, because it seemed like they didn't hear that or they didn't say that. So I'm sitting there trying to play it off hoping my mom, like internally praying, like, Mom, I need you to call me because I need you to pray for me because of what I was encountering. Well, she didn't. She didn't call back. She did. I did leave a voicemail. I remember telling my brother. I got the nerve to tell my brother, "You got to get out of my house. I don't know what you're gonna do, but you got to get out of my house." And then they're like tripping out on me, like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "You got to go. You got to go. Get out of my house." And so he ended up leaving, and I told my sister, "Are you gonna go with him, or are you gonna stay?" So he ended up leaving. My sister stood, and then my mom called back. And then this moment, my mom called back. Now I had chairs set up in my living room because we were just chilling. Now I'm holding my sister down on the chair, thinking something's wrong with her. And and I'm thinking after conversations that I had with her after my encounter, she was kind of experiencing the same thing. Something was wrong with me. Like she was sensing like I was trying to come at her and try to be like I was pretty much either going to kill her or cause her harm. That was her thought process. But in this moment, I'm holding her down, thinking something's wrong and whatever. Nothing happened. My mom prayed, and I guess my mom sent my dad to come pick me up because I told her to come get me. But I remember when my dad got there, I ended up stepping outside my front porch, and I remember telling my sister, "I'm out of here. I'm leaving." I remember on my front porch, I don't know how it happened. I just know that I went completely blind. Like I couldn't see anymore. I couldn't, all I was just completely dark. I couldn't see anything, but I don't even know how I got from my porch all the way into the car. I knew I was walking, but I couldn't see the walkway. I couldn't see anything. But on the drive, all I knew is that I felt all these hands on my body. I felt like all these hands were like pretty much gripping me, holding me down. I was being oppressed. And I remember walking into my mom's home. Now, in this moment, I can't see anything still. I'm still completely blind. I remember sitting on the couch. My mom was on the couch, and I remember laying on her lap. And I remember telling my mom, I feel like I'm getting demon possessed. Something's happening with me. I don't feel right. So I remember my mom, she was praying. My dad already went to the room, went back to sleep, and I was literally crying. It was just me and my mom for about like 3 to 4 hours. I was just having this moment with my mom, and I'm just crying. She's praying for me, trying to like just like really bring comfort to me in this moment, what I'm dealing with. So she prayed, nothing was happening. And I was like, Mom, I need you to keep praying for me. That's all I kept telling her. I need you to pray for me. I need you to pray for me. And it just seems like nothing happened. Nothing changed. I didn't even know what it looked like to ask or to forgiveness or even to dialogue with God. But that was like the first thing in my mind. Like, I need to do something because what my mom's doing is not helping. Like at this moment, it was just me and God. Like I could not run. I could not hide from what was happening. Like I had to deal with this with God and no one else because nothing was happening. So I remember I'm laying on the couch and I'm just crying. Like I didn't even know what forgiveness looked like. I didn't know how to repent or what that looked like to even ask God to forgive me. I just knew just to start saying I'm sorry. And I remember I started saying, I'm sorry for living a life of homosexuality. I'm sorry for living a life of how I treated my mother and my father because I was very mean towards my parents. I was very, very angry towards them, towards my brothers and sisters. A lot of people didn't really like being around me because I was that angry. And I would always say, I was just in a bad place. But I was repenting for all of that. And just doing drugs, how I treated the life I was living. I was just asking God to forgive me. And in that moment, I just knew it felt like my mouth opened up so wide, how I physically felt it. It felt like my mouth opened up so wide. And I just felt like air leave my body. Like it was just like deep exhales just leaving my body, just like, and it happened at least 7 times. And I knew something was significant of that because in that moment I felt I was being delivered by 7 different spirits. And again, I didn't know what to equate it because I didn't have the language for it, but I just knew something was leaving my body. And I remember I ended up going to sleep after all of that. After all that air was being left out of my body, I just remember going to sleep. And when I woke up that morning, it was like I could see in color for the first time. Everything just seemed so much brighter and clearer. I mentioned when I was at my house where it just seemed dark and gloomy. But in this moment when I'm waking up, it just seemed everything seemed so vibrant. Like I don't know how to explain a clean like this, how I felt, but it felt like somebody just cleaned me eternally. Like they went in and just like removed everything out. I don't know how to explain it, but I woke up and I felt so clean, but I also felt so much remorse because it's like I'm gaining all these memories back of all the stuff, all the things that I did. And I felt so much remorse. Like, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I dressed like that. I can't believe I did what I did on the streets. And it was just like all these emotions, all these memories were flooding back. And it was just like I felt so sorry. I never felt like that before, where I was so sorry for the things that I did. And in that moment, that's where I just realized something happened. I don't know what happened. And I remember waking up and realizing something changed. Like something literally changed to where I started looking at my physical self to where I can't believe I dressed like a woman. I can't believe it. And I remember I started going into a place to where I was like, this is not what I want to do anymore. This is not what I want to do anymore. And I remember that morning and kind of that within that week after this encounter happened, I remember I just started attending church with my mother. Like it was just something she was already doing. She was already attending church. So I was like, well, let me go. I didn't when I went to church, I didn't feel shame, I didn't feel guilt, I didn't feel like people were looking at me weird. I didn't feel any type of way. I just went. You know, God met me where I was at in that moment where I'm crying out for help, where no man, no woman could ever save me, but He stepped in and pulled me out of being tormented, being oppressed, and brought me so much freedom that night. Um, Brought me so much clarity and feeling clean that I never could experience anywhere else. This is it fills me with joy because I can think about what I was feeling in that moment, and even now, just feeling the joy of the Lord. Just like I knew what it was then, and it's like I honestly I didn't ever think that God would be able to save somebody like me. I didn't even think it was on His radar like He could change someone like me, but He did, and that right there is like did everything for me. It changed. It transformed me in such a way to where it's like I can't lie about the encounter that I had. I met a savior that night that changed me, and I'm forever grateful for that.
I think there's no question that this was a supernatural event because we talked about your whole life. And as far as you can remember, where you have actual awareness of this, you felt like you were supposed to be a woman. And of course, that developed over the years and with understanding and all of that, but you felt like you were supposed to be a woman. And from one day to the next, all of that was gone, right?
So when that happened, like I started realizing like I really want to live for Jesus. I want to do this. And honestly, I didn't. Again, I mentioned honestly, I didn't even think I was on God's radar, you know, but I always was. And so like actually the whole transitioning part, because I lived 28 years of not knowing Him, not knowing what it was like to have a relationship with Him. So I built a lot of habits, a lot of gesturing, a lot of movements, a lot of things that pertain to my old lifestyle. I would have moments where I would tell the Lord, this is something I want to live for you. but I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know how it's going to look. My hair's long. I still look feminized after my encounter. It's not like that didn't change, right there and there. But I knew what happened in my heart and in that moment. So I remember I had to go through the process. I had to go through the process of transitioning, of reverting back into masculinity, not how I want or how I thought it to be, but how God wanted me to be, and how He created me to be. And I remember on one occasion, I decided to make up in my mind, I want to live for you. I fully want to live for you. I want to cut off my hair. I want to start dressing like a man. And that was the difficult part too, because I lived my majority of my life dressing in skirts and stuff like that, to where I had to wear man clothes now. But at the same time, that's where I wanted to do. That's where my heart desire was, to dress like how I'm supposed to dress. And I made up in my mind one day, and I was telling the Lord, my hair was long, and I was telling Him, I was like, I really want to live for you. I don't want to be that person who says they live for you, because I've known Christians before in my life who were living for Jesus, and then they backslid, and then they came back and then backslid again. I just knew the back and forth type of Christian. I didn't have an example of someone that was being faithful to Him. And I told him, Michael, I don't want to mess up, or I don't want to fall like other people did. I don't want to bring a disappointment to you, like to say that you saved me and then I go back to living how I used to be. I didn't want that. And I remember telling him, I'm going to cut my hair off. But in this moment, I knew that it was like symbolic, because I was cutting off my hair. My hair was very long, but I was cutting off. And when I went to the salon with my mother and my sister, they were in celebration. Like, we got my brother back. They knew something happened. They got their son and their brother back, and something my mom would pray for, my sister would pray for. She's serving the Lord, and they would pray for this. So they're witnessing this, and I'm like, cut my hair. They cut it off, and it was just like this weight was lifted off of me, like physically. It was weight, hair is heavy, and it was lifted off of me. But at this moment, I knew it was a cutting away of an old identity. It was no longer who I used to be. It was coming into the place of walking in my true identity of who God designed me to be. And from that moment on, I decided, I want to take this step. I received the gift of the Holy Spirit. I got baptized, and I've been living for Jesus ever since. It's been 12 years now, and it's been a journey. Yes, it has been a journey. And I feel like with deliverance is a process. It's a journey, and it's constantly going on that journey with Jesus, and on that journey, and it's been amazing.
I want to touch on something, because you mentioned that you wanted to become manly again, but not in the way that society or people are making it out to be, but in the way that God designed you. Can you expand on what that means for you?
So when I say that, because I think we equate masculinity to football or sports, and it's not. I still don't like sports. I try to like it but I just don't. I don't get it. Honestly, I don't get it. But I can sit there and watch it. But people will equate that. Oh, he likes arts. Something's not right there. Why is he not playing soccer or football or something like that? And they can easily put an identifier on a child or something. My thing is I want to be a man how God created me to be, and which is to love Him and to follow His commandments and to live uprightly before Him. And to me, that equates a man. It's living according to His word. It's living how He wants me to live, and not what society tells me how I should be, or what society tells me about who I am and who I should follow, all this other stuff. And it's like, I want to live according to how He tells me personally, through His scripture, through His word.
Okay. And if you were to talk to someone that is struggling with their gender identity, you struggled for a long time, and I'm sure that you would have appreciated to have a mentor, someone that's been there, someone that you can confide in. If you can talk to someone like that today, what would you say to them?
I recently had a conversation like that with a young boy who struggling with his sexuality. And what I would say to them, I would honestly say that God's not mad at you. What you're feeling, your emotions right now, He's not mad at you. He's not judging you. He loves you. If I had someone to tell me those words, that God loves me, that He sees me where I'm at, and that He's willing to walk with me through the process of my feelings and emotions, to let me know that those emotions, those feelings don't dictate your identity. It doesn't give your feelings and your emotions don't give you purpose, but his word does. God's presence gives you purpose, and He begins to tell you who you are. And I would tell them that God loves you. God has a purpose and a plan for you. That the stuff that you're going through in this moment, you're not alone. There's many people who are dealing with the struggle or the thoughts of what you're feeling, and you're not alone. And I would just encourage you to reach out, whether if you are associated with the church, or maybe you have family members who are associated in serving Jesus. I would encourage you to reach out to them and ask them questions. Ask them the hard questions. Ask them the tough questions. I wish I had that around me, and it's not really a known thing for a lot of churches to do that, or really know how to communicate with people who struggle like I did, or maybe struggling like you did. But trust me, God will put somebody in your path to teach you, to show you that you are not a mistake, that you have a plan and a purpose, and there's definitely a call on your life.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the You Almost False podcast. If you'd like to have more context as to what Tommy's childhood looked like, you can head over to Locals and check out that part of the interview. It's free. As always, you just have to make an account. Thanks for sticking around, and I hope you have a great day. Stay blessed.